This video will focus on a very important concept that all leaders should be focused on establishing in the right manner for themselves, for their team members, in order to stay on track, to identify the achievements and the accomplishments done against the strategic plans of their educational institutions. When we talk about key performance indicators or KPIs, what is it that we are talking about? To define this concept, we have to understand that key performance indicators are statements of the area of achievement of a specific goal. That is, operationalizing the goal and success criteria and the matrix used to track the success towards a goal, outcome measures of in the success criteria. KPI is developing meaningful objectives and their associated outcomes, which indicates that yes, we achieved. So this task has to be structured. Without a good methodology to create the objectives and the KPIs, a strategy will never be successfully implemented. It's not about the practice. It's not about saying, yes, we have KPIs. It's about what is in the KPI document. What is written under each one of the titles? So if we look at what KPI is, a KPI is tied to the targets and that indicates how an individual is performing relative to the targets. A KPI is a qualitative or a quantitative metric that embeds the targets so the individual can chart progress towards such targets. A KPI is not the intended outcome of the plan. It is not the standard criteria for measuring the success of the plan. It is not the actual data evidence to inform the target. So if the structure of the KPI has to be so rigorous, how to develop it? There is a methodology which includes 7 steps that we're going to focus on in this video, which helps every single leader to outline a realistic KPI for themselves and for their team members where success is celebrated. Let's stop at each one of those 7 and discuss it in details. But before we do so, let's keep in mind that a key performance indicator is something that can be counted and compared. It provides evidence of the degree to which an objective is being attained over a specific time. One thing that we have to keep in mind, if we want to use this methodology to design and develop our KPIs, this method is aimed at defining the strategy, coming up with a reasonable, practical idea about what the primary objectives are, and then trying to specifically put the results in which the measure of this objective will enable us to say, yes, we have reached, we succeeded, or we have been over-ambitious about it, or we have underestimated our capabilities and abilities. Steps 1 to 4 of this methodology, so create objective, describe results, identify measures, and define thresholds, is template driven. These steps will be completed several times, and the first time through may take a while, therefore it becomes much simpler. While step 5 to 7 are more descriptive, I mean upload structure, data into a system, interpret results, or take action. So let's look into each one of them independently. Number 1, create objective. There is a golden rule here. KPIs are based on objectives. So a KPI should not exist unless it contributes to an objective. It is true that the thought process that go into creating KPIs and objectives can move so quickly that these activities may run in parallel. Nevertheless, a KPI should not exist without an objective. So if I am an evaluator looking into a KPI, the first thing that I evaluate will be the objective. Once we have stated our objectives, and here we have to keep in mind that our objectives should satisfy the SMART goal criteria, which I have thoroughly explained in a video uploaded to the channel, okay? The second one, we will look at the results. To describe the results, we have to take into consideration few things. Number 1, reducing the time taken to convert a qualified lead into a scale. Improve the skill level of all the senior people who will support you to achieve this result. Let's take a scenario. If today I'm talking about students' outcomes, where all schools are focused now on a better students' results, focused on the outcome, focused on the skills rather than the mechanism, structure, and procedure. This is great. And this is what education is all about. But for me to achieve this result, there are so many factors that contribute to having good outcomes, whether be it teachers' qualifications, instructional time, resources, extended practice at home, involvement of parents in the learning journey of the students, learning skills, so many things. So when I put a certain KPI and I'm looking at the results to be described, I have to take into consideration all the different aspects that might either contribute to the success of this objective and its achievement, or setting it to failure. And here, there are so many factors that are out of our control, yet we have to make sure that we look into that and see how much of an impact do they have on the KPIs. Identify measures. There are 3 key activities that need to occur when identifying a measure. Number 1, the measure needs to be clearly described. The measure needs to be rated in terms of importance, and the measure needs to be calculated and ownership assigned. So what is the tool that I will use? When the checkpoints are going to happen? What kind of an instrument, rubrics, I will use in order to say, yes, there is this X progress, and I need to intervene to speed it up and to achieve it on time. So this is very critical, very important. Moving to the 4th point, which is define the thresholds. A key performance indicator has limited value unless it can be compared to something. There may be some value as a record of change over time. However, unless it is known what sort of change is required, even this has little value. So a KPI without a comparator can be used to help stabilize performance. For example, let's look into a new process that we are trying to initiate. there are a lot of variants that can come into that, which might create a certain deviation or create a certain limitation over time. So eventually, when a KPI without a comparator will create values to be compared to, then this will limit our achievements and set it to failure. So these limits will become the thresholds. And number 5, which is upload structure or data into a system. It is at this stage that objectives and metrics can be loaded into a dedicated performance management system. It is possible to manage your KPIs using a spreadsheet. However, spreadsheets are difficult to centralize and maintain. Given there are numerous effective options available, and I have to give credit now to technology, which enables us to connect all the different artifacts or evidence together by creating an interactive connected links. Okay, we have to make sure that we put together all of the scorecards, the checkpoints, the tools. So by then, all the data is embedded into the system where evidence could be easily seen. The intervention, if needed, could be easily created. So everything is centralized into one place. Going into step 6, which is interpret results. Once there is a useful set of actual data in a performance management system, then it would be possible to effectively interpret the results. And here, if we were honest, realistic, practical, and we have the proper quantitative, qualitative data, then it's not only us who can see the success in what we have done, but any person could look into it and say, oh, okay, this leader, he or she knows what they're doing and they're heading in the right direction. So looking into the results, we have to understand that there are 2 different phases. Definitely, number 1, setting the dashboards and the reports, and the second one, interpreting those results. One thing to keep in mind, the objective. Once we start looking into results, we have to hook it to number 1, which is the objective. Last one, taking action. Taking action comes in 2 major forms. The first is to put in place a remedial activity when a problem occurs or an intervention plan. And the second is to create strategic initiatives to promote the change. So now I have my KPIs. I have done specific checkpoints. I measured the progress. I know the impact. I have the outcome. Now I need to say whether, yes, this was worth the investment of the time, effort, resources, whether be it human or physical, or I need to have another approach. I need to put a different kind of a plan in order for me to get to where I am aiming to get. Let's look at some examples. So examples of key performance indicators. Improve attainment of students in MAP language to acceptable by measuring that at least 75 of students in grade X are in the 41 to 99 percentile. This is an example that satisfies all of the things that were stated before, because it is bound to data, it is specific in its statement, it has a very well-structured objective. I have my desired results that I want to achieve. There is a certain threshold that I aim to, and the data is well known from where to be taken. If we're looking at another, and definitely here we have to keep something in mind, what do we mean by an acceptable? What do we mean by a good? So there are specific quantification of those terminologies pending the situation that we are in the place, location, the curriculum, and the statutory requirements outlined in the frameworks. If we look at the second one, enhance the quality of teaching practices in science by achieving a good or plus rating and promoting student choice and voice in all the lessons. So again, all the 7 criteria mentioned in the methodology to have a good KPI are present. Another example, promote innovation through classroom displays, PBL projects, and achieving 75% student usage of platforms every week. Keep in mind, those are the objectives, so I have to think about the SMART goal. Are those specific, measurable, achievable, timely, and realistic? Then those are good. Then I need to start with the other folks of KPIs. There are so many forms available online. We will be exploring those in the upcoming videos relating to KPIs, related to action plans, and other school improvement forms that school leaders should be focused on to guide the practices of every member in their team.